Do the politicians in Washington just look to create big scandals or big news out of not very much news? Well, that's what I tend to think. Naftali Bendavid is going to tell us what American women have to do with American caterpillars. Naftali, is this a story, or is this just a bunch of press releases from the RNC and DNC making much ado about nothing?
Well, I guess you could say that it plays into a bigger story. You know, the Democrats have been trying for some weeks now to say that Republican policies on issues of importance to women, you know, are really harmful. And they've talked about a Republican war on women. So what Reince Priebus, the head of the Republican National Committee, did today, he was pushing back on that. And he said, you know, you could say that we have a war on caterpillars, and then we'd have a problem with caterpillars. And his point was simply that this war on women idea was fabricated. But of course, Democrats immediately jumped on it to say he's comparing, you know, the concerns of women to caterpillars, and he's being dismissive and he's being frivolous. So this is sort of one more phase in the whole battle that's been going on.
Naftali, let me just get your perspective as kind of an insider down in Washington, and me, a New Yorker, kind of sitting here in New York. I look at these things, you know, and these things get covered by us and the New York Times and Washington Post and Politico, and they basically take these various press releases and little quotes and sound bites from various, you know, party members from the RNC and the DNC, and we kind of turn this into news. Do people out in the rest of America actually care about these kind of things?
Well, they probably, I'm guessing, don't care about every little back and forth, every little tit-for-tat comment that comes out. The question is whether they care about the broader issue, that issue being, you know, are the Republicans really trying to roll back the clock on women's rights? And I think from Democrats' perspective, everything they can seize on to try to make that case could end up helping them in the fall. And, you know, the problem with a pithy comment, if you're a politician, is that sometimes it works in your favor and sometimes it's seized on by the other side. So we all remember the comment by the Romney advisor about an Etch-a-Sketch, and that was promptly seized on by his critics to try to say something about who he is. So Democrats similarly are seizing on this caterpillar comment as somehow, you know, reflecting the views of Republicans. My own sense is this is probably a relatively short-lived story, you know, but the broader issue about women's rights, that's something that could continue being debated for a while.
Right. Now, if we step back and we look at the broader question here, if you're at the RNC, you must be, at least as far as the women's issue is concerned, you got to be pretty pleased that it looks like at the end of the day it will be Romney and not Rick Santorum who's going to end up as the candidate. So in effect, you know, maybe the DNC is just trying to, if you will, cynically kind of get their best shots in while Santorum's still in the race here before it becomes just Romney against Obama. Or am I looking too much into this?
Well, I think the truth is that the polls recently regarding women have not been good for the Republican Party. President Obama, according to several polls, seems to be opening up a bit of a lead in swing states, and he's doing that largely because of the women's vote. You know, men tend to be split between Romney and Obama. Maybe they even favor Romney a little bit. But women, by wider margins, seem to be supporting Obama. And that's not just the case only for the presidential race. It's also now trickling down to the Senate races and perhaps the House races. So there is something that I think Republican strategists do need to worry about. But you're certainly right. The Democrats see an opportunity here, and they're trying to seize it and play on it for all it's worth.
Now, I read in your piece that Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I believe, made some comment to the effect where she looked at the actual polls, and she basically takes the polls and uses the polls basically, you know, by quoting the polls kind of against Romney or against the Republicans in general. Is that, I mean, is that what goes as standard practice? I mean, it just strikes me as a kind of strange thing when you're actually going saying, well, you see, we must be right because the polls are saying we're right kind of thing.
Look, I mean,
is that
leaders of both
in
parties grab on whatever they can to try to make whatever point it is they're trying to make. Currently, there seems to be, at least temporarily, something of a surge for Democrats among women voters. Whether that'll last, whether it'll matter in the fall, who knows? But for now, Democrats see an opportunity. I mean, one of the important things here is that women vote a lot more than men. There's a higher turnout, and in absolute numbers, they just vote more. In 2008, it was something like 70 million women voted and 60 million men voted. So if you're a strategist for the Democratic Party and you see an advantage there, that's something you're going to grab hold of as much as you can. And similarly, Republicans are trying to make the other argument. You know, they say, look, our policies are better for the economy. Women, like men, care about the economy and jobs. They should be voting for us. But I think that explains some of the back and forth here. You see an advantage, you grab it.
Final question, Naftali, and thanks for taking the time out of the campaign trail, which I know you're covering for us. Do I read this as just kind of the lull before the storm, a little kind of petty skirmishes? I mean, if you're running for the presidency, and again, let's assume that Romney ends up with the nomination, we're only in early April right now. You know, when do we see the real battles beginning? Do I have to wait till the summer for that? Or am I going to be blessed with these kinds of skirmishes from now until the Republican convention?
Well, look, there's going to be skirmishes every day from here on out. That's just the nature of politics. But in terms of the American voter, when they really start paying attention, often that's not till the end of August. When people come back from their summer vacation, the two parties have their conventions, and it's sort of a sprint until the finish line. But it has to be said that between now and then, both parties try to jockey for position and set things up and lay the groundwork. So when the starting gun sounds, the end of August, beginning of September, they're in the best possible position to seize the advantage.